Former President Rodrigo Duterte was arrested on Tuesday, March 11. He is the first Philippine president or former Philippine president to be arrested by an international tribunal and the first former Asian head of state to be arrested over crimes against humanity. I am Jairo Bolledo, and for this episode of Rappler Talk, we have Interior Secretary Jonvic Remulla to walk us through about the behind the scenes dito sa historic arrest kay President Duterte. Welcome to Rappler Talk, sir.
Thank you, Jairo. Thank you, everyone.
Sir, first things first, yung ating communication from the palace only happened after everything na nangyari na dito sa paglipad. Talagang the palace kept its cards close to its chest, di ba? Parang masasabi natin na ganun. So sir, can you walk us through on what happened? Kailan natin officially nalaman yung warrant to set the record straight?
It was transmitted to General Marbil and the PCTC at 3 a.m. Tuesday morning.
Tuesday morning, sir.
Yes. The president was informed at 6:30 when he awakened. He subsequently gave me a call and asked me to be in the palace by 9 a.m. Present at the meeting were SND Chidoro and NSA Anyo.
Tapos anong meron ba siyang naging doubt, sir? Or parang naisip niyo na ba prior to this event na magkakaroon ng ganitong warrant? Talagang expect ba to ng Marcos government?
Everything was a rumor. Everything was conjecture. Everything was based on the assertions of Senator Trillanes, who was the one in direct contact with the ICC. So we did not want to place a plan of action based on conjecture.
Yes.
We only placed a plan of action until when we got the actual warrant.
So to set the record straight, sir, kasi the Philippines is no longer a member state of the ICC, but we're member state or part of the Interpol. So paano yung communication? Who communicates with the ICC? Nabanggit niyo na si Senator Trillanes.
Unofficial channels, no one. On unofficial channels, si Senator Trillanes. But Senator Trillanes is not directly affiliated with the government. He would have conversations. The government in no way whatsoever form did any member of the government nor branch of the government extend any assistance, aid in investigation, finance any of the fact-finding missions, nor give them accommodations of any other kind for it to happen.
For former Senator Antonio?
No, for the ICC fact-finding committee to come up with their investigation.
And then, kapag nagbibigay po ng information itong si former Senator Antonio Trillanes, ang ginagawa on the end of the government is to verify it, to check it on process?
What do you mean? When he gives information to us?
Yes.
There's no way verifying it. When he says something, we will take it as he says it. But how can we verify? There is no official linkage. There's no even informal linkage. There's none. So we just waited until the actual copy of the warrant
was transmitted to the PCTC and General Marbil. Sir, yung paano yung naging parang planning process dun sa ganong katagal? Yung naging planning nyo, hours?
We started 9 o'clock Monday. Meeting ended, let me recall, around 4 o'clock p.m. We reconvened at 9 o'clock the next day.
At wala pang warrant nun, but only parang possibilities of...
May warrant na no Tuesday morning at 3 a.m.
So nung Monday preparation natin, in anticipation yun?
Based on a rumor.
Based on a rumor.
So,
kasi meron din tayong sourcer na nagsabi na itong si General Marbil nga was spotted in NAIA preparing for the possible return. No confirmation whatsoever, but just for the return.
It was a dry run in the eventual return if it happened.
If may warrant.
If may warrant,
okay.
Yes.
Sir, doon naman po sa proseso na to ang nangyari kasi after the arrival of the President ay parang originally the information that we got in the media is parang 4 p.m. yung kanyang arrival but dumating siya ng 10 a.m. So masasabi ba natin that akala nila walang warrant? May ganun
we don't know what was on their mind. I cannot speak for them.
Yes.
But what we do know is that he 6:20 a.m., he checked into flight CX919. It arrived at 9:20. When everybody on the flight disembarked, PCTC representative went up to him. He went up and joined him out of the tube. On the tube, Prosecutor General read him his rights. He acknowledged to have understood those rights. He was with Attorney Medaldea. They proceeded down to the elevator, straight to the coaster, straight to Area 250 of Villamor Air Base.
Doon sa airplane, sir, kasi merong lumabas na video, contributed video to some media personnel na sinabi ni, parang may quote doon si former President Rodrigo Duterte na barilin nyo na lang ako or saktan nyo na lang ako. But
I did not see that. I didn't see it.
Pero inside the airplane, sino pa ang pinakalumapit kay President Rodrigo Duterte when the airplane landed?
Si PCTC lang ang lumapit sa kanya.
And he was informed of the warrant?
He was informed of the warrant. And then he did not put up a fight. He was a gentleman. He stood up and he walked out on his own. He was not accosted. He was not touched. He was not pushed. He was not manhandled. On his own volition, he exited the airplane.
And in the airport, sir, pagbaba niya, kasi parang may mga commotions na konti, may mga pag-uusap. Kasi sa...
Ano lang yun? Usual drama, but there was no physical contact in any way. The loudest voice there came from him when he was trying to explain his situation. And then there was a semi-heated exchange between Attorney Medaldea and General Victor. But not hot. Not hot. But
pero ano pinag-usapan?
when they asked the president to join the plane, I don't know what the exact nature was, but tempers were rising, and then eventually it died down. And former executive secretary joined the president in the aircraft.
Ito yung papunta na sa Netherlands.
Yes.
Doon naman sa Villamor, kasi medyo matagal pong na-hold itong si former President Duterte inside the Villamor Air Base. Was it a conscious choice talaga to bring him to Villamor Air Base? Because syempre doon yung...
of course, security was the number one issue. Comfort was not the number one issue. Proximity was the number one issue. So all those were considered, and Villamor was the best spot to bring him in.
Pero bakit tumagal, sir, yung process of flying him out of the country?
Flying commercial and flying general aviation, which is private plane, is a different process. When you board the plane, it's called an overland right. That you have permission, in this case, Vietnam, Thailand, Myanmar, India, Oman, UAE, Egypt, and then the rest of the countries.
Kasi ito yung mga dadaanan.
When you pass through sovereign airspace, you have to have written permission and a code in order for the aircraft to pass. You cannot just fly out.
Yes.
You will be shut down as an identified
It's their sovereignty.
Sovereignty. So it took a while to get the permission and the codes from the different countries in order for the plane to fly. That shows you how unprepared we were. We didn't know. We couldn't.
Surprise talaga lahat.
We couldn't plan.
So itong more than, we can say 10 countries, more than 10 countries, talagang one by one, we secured the permit for the airspace.
One by one, we called the ambassadors, we called the relevant authorities, and one by one binibigay. But it's not, you cannot ask them one by one. It's a cascade. Vietnam had to say yes. After Vietnam says yes, Thailand says yes. After Thailand, Myanmar says yes. After Myanmar, India says yes. So it's a cascade. So it's not as simple as that.
And we only started securing the permit the moment the moment the former president landed.
Yes.
Of course.
So talagang hindi kami handa eh. Otherwise, sana nahanda na namin yan, sinakay, less tension, alis na eh. Hindi eh. Talagang doon lang kami nagpaalam eh.
How about the plane choice, sir? Anong plane yung ginagawa?
The plane is a leased plane by the Office of the President. It's a multi-year contract, and they exercise their hours on that lease.
At ginamit natin yun for this event. Doon, so, yun yung tumagal doon. Kaya ang tagal na sa Villamor. Kasi parang before lunch, nandun na si President.
Yes.
And during those periods, sir, while the government is processing, kamusta naman po si former president inside the lounge or wherever na hinolds?
It was pretty cool. Okay naman siya. But I must admit that when it did happen, he was rather melancholy. I think there were memories of the past which filled his head. I cannot speak for him, but memories of the past of 38 years ago, 37 years ago, 38 years ago, I think 39 years ago. I think he remembered a lot of it. And he said one thing to me which really struck me, because it was only the two of us going out of the palace, going to the palace from the residence. He said, nobody should be happy. There is no reason to celebrate. Those are the two phrases which he told me just before we boarded the boat.
So parang traumatized pa siya with resemblance.
He knows that this action has further consequences, that it's not a simple, it is not for political gain. In fact, it makes the water very turbulent going down the road. But it is something he had to do as president. It is something he had to do to fulfill his mandate and to join and to be a formal member of the League of Nations.
Going back to the arrest, sir, I understand that the Malacanang, you as the Interior Chief can pick yung mga people who will implement the warrant, who can help in implementing the warrant and adhering to the rules of Interpol. So, General Nick Torre, at siya po ba ang first choice natin in implementing?
No, it was General Marbil's choice. General Marbil was assigned to form the task force, and he chose everyone else.
And ano po kaya yung nakita ni General Marbil with General Nick Torre?
Oh, you're gonna have to ask him that. But General Torre has a superb record for these things, so I guess that was it. But you're gonna have to ask General Marbil.
And the track record, Kibuloy.
The track record, yeah, Kibuloy. So, but only General Marbil knows this, the reason why.
And PG Fadulyon, of course, because he's the...
Oh, that was a necessary part of the service of warrant.
On the process, sir, na to set the record straight, nabanggit na rin kanina sa Malacanang, pero just to reiterate, ito po ba ay arrest or surrender? At kung surrender siya, sir, or arrest,
it was an arrest because his rights were read. So, in that case, the warrant was served, his rights were read, and he acknowledged to have understood those rights, and he joined the arresting party in the premises designated.
May negotiation ba, sir? Kasi
there was none.
So paano siya?
He just went and all he asked for is, can I have a conversation with my lawyers? And we accorded him all the necessary courtesies. Not only of the lawyer, he had sound dressing quarters, food that he requested. His family was there to join him. The party which arrived with him from Hong Kong were there to join him. Everyone was treated with deference, with respect. They called him sir, they called him Mr. President. And there was no signs of struggle, nor commotion, nor rancor inside that room.
Yung, kasi before that...
Oh, let me correct it. There were, but not on the police. No, not on the authority side. But I think members of his family were upset and emotional. So, that was beyond our control.
We'll get there, sir. Pero doon sa, kasi may mga sinasabi si former President Duterte na parang manlalaban daw siya, something like that. Na parang hindi siya...
Oh no, he was a gentleman.
Yun nga po. Pero pagdating doon, did we prepare for all types of scenarios?
The only thing I asked that it were lady policemen to accompany him and to accost him. Because the possibilities of male policemen could have...
The temper.
Yeah, he could have raised his temper towards them. So, he agreed fully. And he was gentlemanly about it.
So, lahat ng detailed na PNP personnel and officers were all women?
Yes, all wearing body cameras.
From the airplane in Naiya to Villamor and up to the jet?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes. There were some men also, but they were mostly women.
So sir, doon sa speaking of commotion but not on the part of the police, but kasi nakita natin yung isa sa mga video na nag-circulate kasi habang nangyayari itong mga bagay na ito ay meron tayong mata through the daughter of former President Rodrigo Duterte, Kitty Duterte. Did we anticipate that from happening?
No, but we understood why. We didn't anticipate that, but when she did it, we didn't stop her. We didn't grab her phone. You have to understand that she's the youngest daughter.
Yes.
As far as we know. They were just together in Hong Kong. They are very close. They're very loving. And if you put yourself in Kitty's shoes, you would feel the same way. That understanding the nuances of law is beyond her comprehension. That her mind was only for the affections for her father. And that we fully understood.
So how did we handle her, sir?
She was not handled.
Doon.
She was not handled.
May mga times na sinishare niya rin yun sa kanyang Instagram source na tumakas yung boses niya.
There was no retaliation. She was screaming at General Torre, and General Torre was a gentleman about it.
And at one point, she cursed at General
He was still a gentleman about it. She was not threatened in any way. She was not bodily pushed or bodily touched in any way to make her stop. We let her express herself. We let her message come out on the media. We did not censor anything. We totally understood where she was coming from, and we just prayed that it wouldn't escalate from there.
So sir, itong process po na ginamit natin dito, can we consider this as an ICC process to set the record straight or Interpol process?
Interpol process. Purely an Interpol process.
So all the process that we implemented in arresting the former president were Interpol process?
Yes. Based on the letter of request by the ICC for the Interpol to help.
And then, paano po yung naging decision sa Interpol? Kasi nabanggit na po as early as October 2024 ni Secretary of Justice Remulla, your older brother, about the Interpol, that the Philippines is not a member state of the ICC, but it is obliged to cooperate with the Interpol. So parang nagkaroon po ba ng briefing months ago that if ever this happens?
None. That's how unprepared we were. All we had were the legal theories. All we had were the possibilities. But there was no preparation at all. We had all the legal theories on hand. We had discussed that.
Scenarios and everything.
But there was no scenario. We did not know if it was real. Of course, Senator Llanes was elected twice, I think, as senator. And of course, he carries a great amount of credibility. But it was not official channels. So how do you base it on conjecture? As far as we are concerned, we had to put full trust, but we couldn't. So we took it for what it was.
With a grain of salt and reservation.
And reservation, and if it happens, it happens.
Pero on the part of the president and the government in general, when you received the actual notification from the Interpol, walang doubts at all? Kasi that's what we're getting with the messaging of the president.
None. Once we received the Interpol notice, then all plans were set in place.
And the president was kept on mentioning the case of Alice Guo.
Interpol is a very valuable tool for all nations in order to enforce the law. In fact, last month we arrested one Filipina and one Jordanian upon request of Interpol UAE. They were about to be deported to UAE.
They were arrested here. And we complied with the request.
We complied with the request.
UAE through the Interpol and Interpol
UAE through us. Yes.
Yung ito, sir, yung lahat ng operation na to, was it a conscious choice not to speak while the operation is ongoing? Or talagang sa dulo talaga ang communication nyo?
There was nothing to talk about.
Yes.
There was a communication from the PCO that an arrest had been made.
Yes, in the morning.
And there was nothing to talk about it in between.
But the confirmation, sir, for example, of the president for the former president flying to the Netherlands and all.
We could not give a confirmation
unless it happened.
Until we got the overland rights to travel. So again, you're not sure that you're going to fly out. So there was nothing to confirm. If we had said we are flying him out and then we couldn't, then that would have been deleterious on the president's end. So the president is always very circumspect, and he intentionally said, we do not say anything unless we are sure of anything.
So that's the instruction of the president,
Yes.
not necessarily of the Interpol. The Interpol did
No,
not.
it wasn't the Interpol. It was the president saying we have to be sure.
So paano po ba yung process nun? Parang we're allowed to, but by just, following the rules of the Interpol, but all the other interpretations on how to implement the arrest order, it's up to the
We have a system of laws in the country. You have to read the rights.
Yes.
So we followed all the pertinent laws of the country, but we accorded them the necessary courtesies of a former president of the republic.
But the nakita nating problem, as a reporter who covered the hours of this face-off, ano naging problema?
What is the French term cafard? When there is a lull in the battlefield and everybody is waiting and everybody is dying of boredom? Cafard, I think is the word, right?
I think so, sir. But the problem, sir, during those lull times that we are talking about, nagkaroon kasi na misinformation and purely on the part.
That is the function of the internet.
Parties. For example, sir, in the early hours of the arrest, the party of the Duterte camp and the supporters were saying that there's no warrant. But of course, you cannot be arrested without a warrant.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on this? They were claiming na walang warrant.
Ang ganyan ang nature of the internet. Information fills a vacuum. And upon the sign of the president, he decided to prolong the vacuum until we were sure of what we had on hand. What we informed was two things. We had the president on hand, and the president is being kept safely. And those were true. We also had intimated that there was a warrant, a valid warrant. But then news started flying around that the Supreme Court had given a TRO that
na walang binasang Miranda rights. Nilista ko talaga na hindi daw pinayagan yung mga lawyers, but Attorney Medialdea was there, na may medical attention daw, and the ultimate misinformation, I could call that misinformation, was there was actually a TRO issued by the Supreme Court. But if you're following the justice system, if you're covering the justice system, it's not impossible, but it's highly not possible.
In fact, all the 30, I think I count 30 officers, all were body cams. The interviews of the president were all recorded. The request for the medical history of the president through his common law wife, Hanilet, was recorded. The invitation for her to fly with the president was recorded. Her refusal was recorded.
Refusal to what, sir?
To board the flight.
So she was in.
Yes, but she refused. Their request for for two doctors were accorded. The request for two security personnel were accorded, and everything is put on video, and we will bring it out in due time. So just to prove the point that we followed the rule of law.
Pero during those times, sir, of course, narinig nyo na yan when you're in Malacanang or you're with the president. Nung kasama niyo po si President, wala ba parang siyang instructions? Hindi ba siya parang nangarag or parang na-stress?
No, not at all.
Kasi nagkakaroon ng ganitong misinformation.
If there's anything, the President is a very cool man. He's listening to music, he'd come back, he'd say, what's the latest? Okay, let's do this. He's a cool man. He's just going through the motions. Pero
nung nagkaroon ng filing ng TRO, nung hapon, through Senator Bato de la Rosa, nagkaroon po ba kayo ng parang regroup na parang what if na magkaroon ng
he just kept asking, the overline, kumusta ang overland natin? All of that he put aside. He only bothered with things which he had control of. And that was the overland rights, securing the overland rights. He had no control of the Supreme Court. He did not talk to anyone in the Supreme Court. He just waited.
And
waited until Wheels Up. When Wheels Up was declared at 11:03, that was the only time that he boarded the boat to cross the river to join the press conference.
In Malacanang. Sir, doon sa jet, sa aircraft, sino ang last na kasama ni President? Paano ang complete entourage ng dating Pangulo?
Let me see. I think,
of course, Secretary Medialdea.
This is from, I can be wrong, but from what I know, he requested two doctors.
Two doctors.
Specifically from the AFP. He requested former ES Medaldea, and 2 of his security escorts.
And then from the part of the Philippines, para sa PCTC.
A PCTC representative.
Ilan sila, sir?
Isa.
Isa lang.
Another doctor.
From the PNP?
From the AFP.
AFP.
Or the PNP. I'm not sure, but I think so.
But uniform personnel.
Uniform personnel, and 1 lieutenant colonel, 1 major, and 1 captain.
May stopover sa Dubai before he will be flown to the Netherlands in Europe. Pagbaba ng eroplano sa Netherlands, ano nang mangyayari kay former President Duterte?
I'm not a lawyer, but from what I understand, the return warrant will be served. He will be turned over to the ICC, and the rest, I think, is between the former president, former ES Medaldea, and the ICC.
And then the entourage, except for former ES Medaldea, will
return to the
Here.
Philippines.
So, ang makakasama niya lang talaga doon ay, so far, si attorney ES Medaldea bilang lawyer niya. Tumatayong lawyer niya.
Yes.
And then bahala na siya on his own because he's no longer the president. And he, of course, the Philippine government cannot represent him.
He's beyond our jurisdiction. And what we have to stress, and I will be remiss if I don't, is that we had asked repeatedly for the health status, although we had taken his blood pressure and it seemed okay. We had taken his heart rate, it seemed okay. But we had requested repeatedly from his common law wife the medication that he was taking, his general state of health, what his allergies were, and she refused to be candid about it. So all of that is in video, and all of that is recorded. But we had to be sure, and we tried our best to be sure.
So paano na po ngayon yung paano po yung comment ng Malacanang at ng Marcos government on the people commenting that this is a political move from the Marcos administration, particularly in preparation of the 2028 elections, where the incumbent vice president, is among the top contenders to succeed the president. So what can you say about that? And this only happened after the rift between the Marcoses and the Dutertes.
I cannot answer that.
Yes.
I don't know what is on the president's head. But as far as he said, he's no longer a candidate. He's not declared for any candidate. This investigation began 2017, way before he became president. He did not aid the ICC in any way, and the Interpol notice came. So what other interpretation is there left except to follow the rule of law?
After the arrest and after the send off of the former president, did President Marcos try talking to the Duterte family?
No, there was no conversation because he was exhausted by the end of the day. But he did say one thing. He said, we call each other first. He calls me by my first name. So, Jonvic, there is no reason to be happy. There is nothing to celebrate. And I felt a sense of maybe a past trauma in him of what happened in 1986. And he knows that the country is in for something bigger than that arrest. That the dominant conversation in this country will be about that. Will it be about the rule of law? Will it be about an injustice? Will it be about politics? He knows that the conversation will shift in this country. And he knows it's going to be very difficult.
For human rights observers, reporters, and organizations, the president has no clear stance toward the ICC, aside from his messaging that he will not cooperate directly with the ICC, but with the Interpol. But this arrest and the send-off of the former president, Rodrigo Duterte, was the strongest message so far of the Marcos administration with regard to the ICC. So
no,
could this signal, sir?
It was not a strong message about the ICC. It was a strong message about the rule of law. That if in the past the rule of law did not apply, he was very adamant that all processes, all procedures should be followed.
And in your part, sir, napag-usapan na ba after this, yung mga nangyari na tong saga with former President Rodrigo Duterte about the fate of the Philippines with the ICC and Rome Statute?
No, our last conversation was when I walked him to the boat. I said, "Good night, Mr. President."
After the press con?
Yeah, after the press con. He was silent. walking to the boat. When I walked into the stairs, I go, Mr. President, good night. Have a good night's sleep. He said, thank you, gentlemen, well done. And then we walked out.
Kahapon, while everything was happening inside Villamor, there were hundreds of Duterte supporters outside clamoring and protesting against the President Marcos. They were criticizing the president, calling him names and all that bangag and whatsoever, the usual criticisms of them against the president. Is the DILG and PNP ready for anything? Na kung magkakaroon po ng malalaking mobilization?
We're always ready. We're always ready.
Did we anticipate that from happening?
No. Personally, I don't think we have the appetite for it.
Yes.
I mean, the country as a whole doesn't have the appetite for it. I don't think we're at an inflection period. I think the right to protest is enshrined in our Constitution, and they should not be denied. I think the right to free speech is enshrined in our Constitution and should not be denied. So there is nothing to prepare or to prosecute. It is just a matter of life in the Philippines. Ganyan talaga eh. Ganyan talaga tayo eh.
Pero paano tinitingnan SEC ng Marcos cabinet yung mga remarks, halimbawa from former Secretary Harry Roque calling for people power and everything? Paano niyo siya tinitingnan? Paano siya binabasa?
If you pay to every single comment on the internet, you will have no time to govern. So he does not pay attention to it. He governs, and that's what he does best.
For last question, sir, ngayon na after hindi pa officially magsa-start yung trial ni former President Rodrigo Duterte, but now that he will be there in a few hours doon sa ICC, he will be on his own. He will not be represented by the Philippine government because he's no longer the president. He is a private citizen, a Filipino citizen, representing himself in the case. So, paano pong updates nito? Makakatanggap po ba tayo ng updates?
I think the procedures will be open. I think they're open to the public.
And from time to time, the Malacanang will provide vital
it will be open on the web. I think all procedures will be carried and covered. And actually, I don't know. That's all I think. Because I've never, in the history of this country, we've never gone through an ICC. So we have no point of reference. But The Hague being part of a liberal democratic institution, I think they will be transparent about the procedures.
And for my last question, bilang head po ng isa sa mga vital cabinets ating pamahalaan, there were criticisms that with the arrest of the former president, parang sumusuko daw tayo doon sa jurisdiction ng mga foreign entities, and parang the messaging was pinapabayaan lang natin yung mga kapwa natin Pilipino, isinusuko natin sila. What can you say about that? Speaking with the Interpol terms that we have.
Yeah, we are part of a community of nations. And there are treaties and laws that we observe. To turn our back on that means that we turn our back into the entire the entire universe of countries in the world. So the president was merely complying with the treaties that the Philippines has entered into.
Thank you so much, Sec, for joining us today for
Thank you very much.
Rappler Talk. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Rappler Talk. I am Jairo Bolledo.